What's up, guys? I'm Mike, and this is.
Grayson.
All right, cool. And we are the On Mind Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the top 5 most influential films in our lives. These aren't like our favorite films, they aren't really the best films either, but they're the ones that have influenced us, what we think of movies, and these films have impacted our life in some kind of special way. So,
Yeah, for sure.
all right,
Sweet. Well, let's get into it.
sick. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
go
cool.
first. So my one of the movies that I remember the best as a child that I watched over and over and over. It's from 1966. It's called Batman. It's not like The Dark Knight. It's not like any of the franchise movies. It's just Batman. And it's I can't remember who it's starring, but it's Batman and Robin, and it's super cheesy. Super cheesy. But like 6-year-old me, 7-year-old me like loved it to death.
That's
I thought
awesome.
it, I thought it I thought it was the coolest thing. And I was obsessed with Batman. Anyway, so basically the movie revolved around. I'm trying to think of like the plot of it. Like Batman and Robin are trying to. Well, I guess they're like trying to save the world, whatever that
They
means.
always are, yeah. At least Gotham
Yeah,
City.
yeah, true. You know what? I actually don't know if this movie was based in Gotham City.
Oh, really?
I'm not positive. I mean, it could have been for sure, but that does not stick out in my mind. So who knows? If you know about it, then maybe you can let me know. I need to watch it again though. It's been over a decade and a half since I've seen it
Oh,
probably.
man. It's been a minute.
Yeah. Um but one of my favorite scenes from this movie is they so Batman and Robin are chasing someone, and they get the people that they're chasing go on water. So they take a boat or something, I guess. And then Batman and Robin hop in the Bat boat and chase them on the Bat boat. And at some point, I can't, like, it's all foggy in my head. At some point, they are needing to be rescued off of the Bat boat. So the Bat copter, or the Bat helicopter, whatever it's called, comes to their rescue. And Batman and Robin are climbing up or they drop a rope ladder down,
Yeah.
right? And they like are climbing up, and then out of nowhere, like a shark comes and bites
Just
Batman on the leg,
where
and
was
like
this? Was this was like
it's
on a lake or something? Like
it was probably on a lake,
this
because
is
like
random shark.
the waters weren't. I mean, like it was in the ocean, like in the movie, it was like
Oh,
in the
okay,
ocean,
okay.
but
This is just so funny.
yeah, like there's
Random
there's no
shark.
blood, there's no blood or anything,
Of
but he's
course
just like
not.
attached to his leg or foot or something. And then Robin hands him shark repellent, because of course you have shark repellent in the Batcopter.
Of course. I never leave home
So he
without my shark
passes.
repellent.
Right.
You never know.
Um, I know, literally. Um, so he like sprays the shark with shark repellent, and they like live happily ever after, I guess.
That's great.
But so yeah, that movie, like, I don't know, it kind of got me into. It was like probably the first movie that I watched repetitively, and just like got to know it really well. Um, yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say about it.
Sweet.
If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Even though it might not actually be a good movie, I can't say that or not.
Just for a good time.
Yeah, just for a good time, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's some movies that you just turn your brain off and laugh, enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. That's so funny. All right. Well,
What you got?
yeah. So my first movie is kind of gonna roll into my second, which is kind of like why I wanted you to start first. And my first movie is Toy Story 2. Like when I was super little, I'm talking like 2, 3 years old. I was
Yeah.
super into Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear, Zurg. Like I thought they were
What
like
year
the
did
coolest.
what year did Toy Story come out? Do you know?
I think it was like 96 or 98, somewhere around there.
Wow, that's crazy.
It
That's
was
way older than I thought it was.
yeah, it okay, so this movie, I think Toy Story was the first ever like computer generated animated movie. Like
No
feature length
way.
animated movie like ever, yeah. Because I know
Wow, that's
Pixar like
wild.
really pioneered it, which actually if you didn't know, George Lucas created Pixar.
Had no clue.
He like started the company,
That's
yeah.
sick.
And I think like
That's
before they
sick.
really did anything, he like sold the rights over to Disney and then they started making stuff with it. But like the
Hmm.
company, the concept was actually George Lucas's. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty wild. But anyway, that's a different story. So I'm already going off on a tangent. By the way, like if you don't know me, I'm like super into films and I'm a film major at Georgia State University in Atlanta. So like movies is kind of my thing. Filmmaking is kind of my thing.
I
But
love I love movies as well. I am not a film major and I do not aspire to make movies,
but you definitely
but
watch more movies
I
than I do. That's for sure.
yeah, I do appreciate good quality movies.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, anyway, Toy Story 2, I was like obsessed with it. And I remember my parents were like, "Well, if you like Toy Story so much and you like Buzz Lightyear and Zurg, you need to see Star Wars. You need to see Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader."
Yeah.
So I don't remember this, but they had me sit down and I watched Empire Strikes Back because it had that whole like Luke, I'm your father scene, and I mean if you
Mm.
haven't seen the movie by now, like come on.
Yeah. The
Like
movie's
I'm not
like
gonna say
40 years
spoilers.
old or something.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so it had like the whole like Luke, I'm your father thing, which like mirrored the or really Toy Story 2 was like ripping off Star Wars when they did like the scene in the elevator shaft or whatever. So I thought
Yeah,
that was like
yeah.
so cool. But then I watched Star Wars and it like blew my mind. What I do remember though is I know I was 3 years old and I'm pretty sure I was living in Florida then because like I can pretty much like vividly picture like where I was when I saw this. But
That's crazy.
yeah, I remember sitting down and watching Return of the Jedi and I remember seeing the scene where Luke removes Vader's helmet, and I mean that like absolutely blew my mind.
I
Uh,
would pay I would pay money if I could remember where I was the first time I watched that movie or Star
yeah,
Wars in general,
yeah.
honestly, because like I have no clue. I have no clue when I watched it. I just know I watched it at some point.
Literally, I'm like positive that me like watching Return of the Jedi for the first time is like my earliest cinema memory like that I have.
Man,
Um,
that's crazy.
and it's crazy because Star Wars is what got me into wanting to make movies and films, and it's like impacted my life ever since. I mean, it is literally like if it wasn't for me watching that scene, like I don't know if I mean I probably would be, but I don't know if I would be doing like what I'm doing today. So
Yeah.
it's probably the most impactful movie for me is Star Wars Episode 6 and of course the rest of the franchise because I've been hooked on Star Wars ever since. I've just been a huge fan. I remember when I was really
Yeah.
little, I watched Attack of the Clones, the end of Attack of the Clones, like over and over and over again. Like the whole third act from when they go to like the droid factory onward, because I thought the battle at the end was just so cool. And
Right.
Revenge of the Sith was the first time I ever saw a PG-13 movie in theaters. So
Dang.
pretty
I don't
cool.
know the first PG-13 movie I saw in theaters either. I don't even know the first PG-13 movie I saw, period. I wish I had a better memory. Like, dang.
Of course, like I'm
Um,
pretty sure it was the first ever PG-13 movie I'd seen. I was pretty young at the time, and my parents didn't like let me watch a lot of like uh, PG-13 movies and stuff like that. So, but
yeah,
it's pretty
definitely.
cool. Pretty cool.
For sure. Well, moving on. I guess number two, I'm kind of going in chronological order of when I watched these movies. This may not be 100% accurate, but my next movie is a series. And me and my family decided to watch all of these movies in a single summer. And there's over 20 of them. So if you don't know by that context, it's the James Bond movies. Um, and they're so good. I love them so much. Like definitely my favorite spy movie. I really haven't seen too many other spy movies, so I might be missing out. But it's got to be like the longest running like movie franchise that exists.
Yeah. I
Cuz
mean,
they
it's been around
started
for
making
forever.
they started making those movies in the 60s, and
That's
like
crazy.
there's one supposed to come out this year. Yeah, this year. It was supposed to come out
60
last year,
years
but
later.
it got postponed, obviously.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, yeah. So literally 60 years later they're still making these movies, and they've obviously had probably, I don't know, a handful or two of different Bonds. The first being Sean Connery, who is probably my all-time favorite.
He's so awesome.
And yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, for real.
He died last year at some point. And the newest Bond being Daniel Craig, who is an incredible actor. I love him. He's probably my third favorite Bond. I should have done research before this and like figured out who my second favorite is. I can't think of it off the top of my head though. Whatever. But there's so many movies that it's honestly just impossible not to get into it. Like if you're watching them and you're into that sort of movie, then you're gonna like it, you know?
Yeah.
Like the stories are always so intriguing and interesting, and there's so much like going on, and the villains are like always so interesting. Like Goldenfinger, that's the one that stands out the most. He's like
What
such
a
an
name.
interesting. I know, right?
Then that's cool though.
Um,
That's cool.
yeah. So I remember that like that summer that me and my family watched all those movies. It was so fun. We would go to our local like rentable movie store called Hastings, um, which I'm sure almost nobody knows. But it in Maryville, Tennessee, where I'm from, there was this store called Hastings, and they had used movies, used books, all for rent. If you know what McKay's is, it's like a Tennessee local used book and movie and music store. It's that, but you can rent it and then return it, and you can like get a membership and stuff. Me and my
Sick.
friend Daniel, who's also from Maryville, we like reminisce on it because Hastings closed down maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Um,
That sucks.
but
It's
yeah,
like it's like
it's
Blockbuster.
it's really sad. Um, but we like we frequently talk about how awesome Hastings was,
That's cool.
and like video games that we'd rent and stuff. Anyway, off topic. But so yeah, we would rent movies, the James Bond movies from there, and like obviously return them.
Keep
Unless
them
like unless we wanted
forever.
to, yeah, literally. Honestly, they probably wouldn't have even charged us that much. It
Yeah,
was one of those type of places that if
that's
you kept a
cool.
movie, it probably won't charge you like the full price of the
And
movie.
that's how they went out of business. You have
Maybe.
nothing to say. You have nothing to say to
Maybe.
that.
I hope not. That's terrible. Oh my god. Um but yeah, love James Bond. That's all I got.
That's sick. That's so
Yeah.
sick. I haven't seen a single one of those movies, but I really need to.
You need to. You need to.
Um, so probably the third most influential movie for me would be Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and that one in particular, because I remember like in middle school, I remember I read like all the Harry Potter books, and I started to watch the movies, and I just like did not really get into the movies. I was just kind of about the movies.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never actually seen all of the Harry Potter movies all the way through.
No
I've
way.
seen bits and pieces of most of them, and I've seen the first one, the second one, and the third one all the way through. An unpopular opinion, I really like the third movie. Everybody like hates on the third one. I actually pretty much like really well enjoyed it.
Is that the one with the big spider?
That's the second one.
What happens in the third one?
The third one has like the werewolf, and Harry Potter fans are gonna hate me. I read the books, okay? So like, and it has all the Dementors, like they look almost like Green
Oh,
Knights.
is that the one with like that focuses on Sirius Black?
Yes, yeah, he's the werewolf.
Oh yeah, I really like that one
The
too.
Prisoner of Azkaban. I really like that one. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
I like that
Whoever
movie.
doesn't like that movie, like whatever, you're wrong.
Well, there's a reason for it. It's because they got like a new director who like changed the style and the look of the films, and he even
Oh,
like
I didn't know
changed the
that.
location of Hogwarts to be like a different like actual castle. So like the
Oh,
whole
for
movie
real?
looks and feels different
Huh.
compared to the first two, which is why I
The
like some
more you
people.
know.
Yeah. But anyway,
I
that's
don't know. I
that
never
has
knew
nothing to do
that.
with Lord of the Rings. I read the Lord of the Rings books, and I watched the movies, and I actually enjoyed the movies more than I liked the books, honestly.
Yeah.
I felt like the Hobbit book was better than the movies, but the Hobbit book is written very differently compared to the Lord of the Rings, because the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah,
a lot of it is like backstory and stuff.
I've actually never read or seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I may have seen like part of one of the movies.
I'm so disappointed.
I
I'm just
know
so
it's
disappointed.
it's so interesting that I haven't because I think they're like my mom's favorite movie, if not her
That's
favorite, like
cool.
one of her top favorite movies of all time, and I've never seen them. So whatever. But I have read and seen The Hobbit. Um, I loved the book. It was like one of the only books I have loved reading. I'm not a huge reader, for anyone that doesn't know, but I really enjoyed reading and going through that book. And it was like a class assignment, and I was the only one in the class that enjoyed it. But whatever.
That's funny.
To each their own.
Yeah, yeah. No, the movies are so good. And I'd pick The Fellowship because it's probably my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. Just because there's
Hmm.
something like so pure and innocent about it, like before they go out on their journey, and everything like throughout the movie. The
Is that
movie
the
just
first
gets
one?
yeah, yeah. It's the first
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I've
as they
seen the
start,
VeggieTales. I've seen
oh
the
my
VeggieTales of that
gosh.
one.
What was it? I'm trying to remember. I remember I saw it once. What was it like? Lord of the Beans, and then they had like the Spork Army.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, the tree people like creeped me out as a kid. Like they freaked me out. I hated the tree people. Like
The
in
tree
the
people
Veggie
are weird for
Tales,
sure.
not in like actual Lord of the Rings. It was the Veggie Tales ones. I thought the tree people were so creepy.
Aren't they like big broccoli or something?
I don't even remember.
Who
I just
knows?
remember they were like creepy to me.
Correct us. If you know, then let us know.
Fact checkers.
Yeah.
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 But no, I love the Lord of the Rings. Mainly, I just love the design, just the beauty of the cinematography. So I mean, the battles are so epic and grand. There's nothing like it, and there will never be anything like it. Honestly, just the costumes, the attention to detail in the costumes. I mean, some of the orcs and urukai, like the monsters and stuff, took
Yeah.
like 12 hours for them to put all their prosthetics on and get like fully dressed. I mean, just the amount of time and detail that went into these films,
That's
they're
crazy.
they're just like it's just like mind blowing. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
And I feel like Lord of the Rings made like the fantasy world like cool, just because of how they portrayed it. It's so neat. But yeah, I just love those movies.
Very cool. Well, yeah, those are definitely some movies that I need to see. You need to invest like 9 to 10 to 12 hours into
Yeah.
and
So
just sit down and watch them all.
funny little thing about Lord of the Rings, like, and how I've seen them is I've only ever seen the like extended director's cuts.
Oh yeah.
There's like two different ways you can watch the movies. There's like the regular like theatrical releases, and then
Mhm.
there's the extended cuts. And the extended editions, add like an extra hour onto the movies. Like it's so much
Oh
more.
my gosh.
And let me tell you, like,
Those movies are already like 3 hours
yeah,
long.
no, it's literally like it's almost. I'm pretty sure it's almost 4 hours.
That's
With
insane.
the extended editions. I mean, it's
That's
pretty
insane.
wild. But it adds just so much more to it and gives you so much more context and adds so much
Yeah.
more to the characters. There's a lot of people out there who like they'll have only like seen the theatrical releases and then they watch the extended editions and like they just love the movie so much more just because it adds so much more to it.
Yeah.
Um, and Return of the King, the last one, is tied with Titanic and Ben Hur from like the 50s and
Huh.
60s. I can't remember what year that movie
Interesting.
came out. As the most Academy Award wins like ever. I think it got like
Oh,
17 Oscars.
that's wild.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying it was tied to them.
No. No.
Like correlated. Okay.
No,
My bad.
that no, there it's like tied with those two other movies as the most like awarded Oscar awarded movie of all time.
That's crazy.
I think they had like
That's
23
wild.
nominations and 17 wins. Like it's
Oh
it's
my
literally insane.
gosh.
It's like it's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So you've got to see them. They're so good. Anyway,
I
that's
know,
it
I need
for
to.
Lord of the Rings.
Dang. Well, moving on to mine. I kind of switched to my phone here. Um, I guess the next one for me is Pulp Fiction. Now, um my parents might not be too excited about me saying that, but it truly was the first movie I ever saw that like rewired my brain to think differently about movies. I've seen it several different times now. And like it's up there in one of the best movies ever in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just the story and the plot, like no movie has kept me so consistently entertained than that movie, I don't think. And like I do think that it's Quentin Tarantino's like prized child out of all of his movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love all of his movies, but I would say that's probably like his most regarded one, highly regarded one, I should say.
Yeah, I feel like that's a movie like if you're into film, you have to kind of like watch that at some point just cuz it's so iconic.
Yeah, I mean like it's definitely not for everybody.
No.
Quentin Tarantino is a very raunchy director. Like he
He's
does
very
not,
vulgar, very
he
yeah.
does not leave anything up to interpretation.
Yeah.
You will see brains get blown out.
You'll see everything.
Like,
You'll hear
yeah,
everything too. He
you'll
like
hear
does not
everything.
care. Yeah. I mean, you'll hear it all. I as vulgar as his like scripts and his dialogue is, I definitely think that he has some of the most creative and interesting dialogue out of like any movies just cuz it's so entertaining. Like
Yeah,
I mean, it's so like well crafted.
and I mean, like the actors that like some of the most iconic actors ever were in that movie.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just like perfectly curated before it even like probably before they even started filming. Perfectly curated to be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
honestly.
You know the have you seen the Aristocats Disney movie, like the little animated
Yeah,
Disney
I
movie?
actually I watched that not too long ago actually.
So the dance scene, when they're at that little like cabana place and they're like dancing on the stage.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so Quentin Tarantino, his direction to them, he literally like showed them a clip from the Aristocats movie, and he was like, "I want you to dance like that." No joke. Like
Oh
when they're
my
like doing
gosh.
the like the little dance or whatever, like and with all the cats like playing the music. Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's I just love it. It's so funny. I love that little thing.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, his movies are so cool. But they're definitely interesting. What I like is his cinematic style, and I think we might have time for a few honorable mentions, because we're getting through
Yeah, I
this
think
pretty
so.
quickly. But I like I'm a big fan of Sergio Leone's directing, which if you don't know who that is, a lot of people listening probably don't. But he directed The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, among with a bunch of other westerns. He really didn't make a lot of films. I think he only made like 5 or 6 films like throughout his whole career.
Oh, interesting.
But they're all like really incredible. Especially like he did Once Upon a Time in the West. I think he did Once Upon a Time in America, which is like a lesser known film of his.
Wait a second.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's just
Whoa.
yeah.
That's
That's
crazy.
a rip
That's
off of
totally what it was
Sergio
based
Leone.
off of.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Crazy. And
Tarantino
that's
like pretty much steals Sergio Leone's like cinematic style. Like it's pretty much a
yeah.
rip off of to the point that what's crazy is so you think of like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg work a lot with like John Williams for their music. Like he is
Mhm.
like their go-to composer. Um, Sergio Leone, his go-to composer was Ennio Morricone, and these guys are all Italian, which is so they're all like Italian directors, Italian artists.
Yeah.
But a lot of the music in the majority of Tarantino's movies was done by Ennio Morricone. Whether and I think they're all actually from other movies. Like he just took the music from other movies that Ennio Morricone has done and put it in his films. So like
Huh.
he has. So many people talk about how like um, unique Tarantino's style is, and I'm like, it's really not though. Like, but
Yeah.
even Sergio Leone, the guy he's ripping off of, ripped off of another director from the 50s, and from
of
the like the
course.
40s and 50s, Akira
Of
Kurosawa,
course.
who and what's crazy is like, and I have a video where I outline this on my YouTube if you want to check that out. Shameless plug. Uh, but uh, where I basically talk about how Sergio Leone and Akira Kurosawa, the other director, pretty much inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars. I mean, everything's interconnected. Everything's like inspired by something. I could
Wow.
go on and on and on and talk about it, but that's a whole other tangent. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's
super
cool.
cool.
It's cool.
Long story short, Quentin Tarantino directed Pulp Fiction, and his style of directing is very Western.
Yeah,
Not to say his movies are Western. Some of them are,
yeah.
but
He makes some good westerns. Like,
yeah, but some or they're all like shot like westerns, like
yeah,
really like tense close up scenes
I love it. I
like
love it.
that like leave you like in anxiety for like an uncomfortable amount of time,
Yeah,
but it's brilliant. Like it's brilliant. Like in all westerns, most westerns do that. I shouldn't say all. Most westerns do that, especially whatever that director's name is. I don't want to botch it.
yeah.
Like
Sergio Leone. Yeah.
Sergio. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely like it's a deeper cut, but if you haven't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like especially if you're a fan of Tarantino, you have to watch it because
Yeah, I need
his
to. I haven't
his everything is based off of that movie. Like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway,
for sure.
well, I guess it's my turn now, even though I just talked for forever. Sorry.
You're good. You're good. Love it.
But the next movie I'd say is really influential for my life is Interstellar. And Interstellar
Yeah.
is near and dear to my heart because of the first time I watched it was with Ashley, who's somebody who's like she's been a big part of my life like 5 years now. She's a really awesome person. And uh, yeah, I remember watching it for the first time with her. She wanted me to see it because I was so into film, and I hadn't seen it, and that's what got me into like Christopher Nolan and his films. But really, it was the first film because at the time I was starting to learn like cinematography and the art of filmmaking, so I just started thinking of like films as being like an art form, and I
Yeah.
really hadn't like approached films from that perspective before. And so when I watched Interstellar and Christopher Nolan, I mean his cinematography is just gorgeous. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like was thinking about it was and it's probably the first movie that I watched thinking about movies as an art form, and I feel like it really had a strong impact on me. Um, it really changed my perspective of films and how I want to make films moving forward. And
Yeah.
since then, I've just done so much digging on other films that are cinematically just gorgeous and powerful and things like that. But that movie was probably the first one that really got me into thinking of filmmaking as an art form rather than
Yeah.
just like entertainment.
I really love that movie. I only watched it this past summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the first time I watched it, but I loved it. I had heard good and bad things about it. A lot of people love to rip it to shreds.
Yeah. A lot of people do.
Um, which, you know, like that's fine. Like I definitely had like one or two problems with it that I can't even think of right now cuz I don't know. I would just need to like go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
um, but I think it is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. Even the
I
film is a bit like a lot of people like love it or hate it at that point, but
Yeah,
I
for
enjoyed
sure.
it. I enjoyed it for what it was.
I I really liked the ending. That's like my take on it is I really loved it. I like it way more than the ending of Inception.
Yeah.
I'm not like I like Inception, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. It just makes it's just so much to take in. Like I love having to think hard about movies, but Inception is just like on another level for
It's
me.
mind
And
numbing.
I enjoy it, but it's just not my favorite. It might be my third favorite of his. But his most recent movie, Tenet, did not like it at all.
That's
I've only seen
crazy.
it once.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once, and I need to give it another shot for sure. But I was like kind of tired when I watched it too. But it was just like I got halfway through it, and I was not following the story like at all. Um, so whatever. If you like it, then I'm happy for you. I wish I liked it.
I've heard a lot of people say that
Um,
like they didn't get it the first time you watch it, and I'm like, is does that make it like a bad movie? If you don't understand the movie the first time you watch it, you have to watch it a second time?
maybe it makes you a bad viewer.
Maybe, but I don't know. I've just heard a lot of people say that like they just don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard one to like, in my opinion.
Okay.
But anyway, Interstellar is really really well done, and it's really beautiful in a lot of parts. I think. Um, I think they could have done it many different ways that kind of make more sense, but I am glad they did it the way they did.
Awesome.
They being Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
No,
might
that's a
that
good
might
one.
be in. Well, if I had not seen it so recently, that would probably be an honorable mention of mine.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool
But
movie.
I need some more time with it for sure. Probably
One
need
of
to watch it
the
one or two more times.
one of the key things I like about it is like just a neat thing about the cinematography of it. A lot of the shots that you see of like the spaceship going through space were designed to look like the shots that NASA gets, like the video that NASA gets of
Oh yeah.
like the shuttles and like the International Space Station, because like a lot of the shots of the spaceship, the camera's mounted to the ship. Like there
Mhm.
aren't a lot of shots, where the camera is just off in space, whatever, looking at the ship. It's
Right,
made
right.
to look like more real in that regard, which I think little things like that are just so cool.
No, that's so cool.
I
Like
love the
it's
thought that's
something that
put
you
into
don't
it.
notice. It's something that you don't notice, but it adds like that extra layer.
Yeah, so much of cinematography is like subconscious. Um,
Mhm.
I have a thing that like I don't know. I guess I have like a perspective that people can recognize good cinema, but most of the time you don't know what makes it good. Like you can tell a good movie from a bad movie, but sometimes it's really hard unless like you've like studied it to like know why it's good or why it's bad. But everybody can
Yeah.
recognize it because we were surrounded by it like all the time.
Hmm.
Um, that's something like with me having like a video business, something I've noticed is a lot of clients and stuff like they can tell what makes something good or bad, but they don't always know like what makes up like good or bad video
Yeah.
film. So
Yeah, definitely.
anyway, your
Very
turn.
cool. My next one is a movie called The Grand Budapest Hotel, and I watched it for the first time at my friend Garrett's house. Like we were just like, I was staying over at his house, and he was like, "Hey, I have a movie. It's kind of weird, but I think you'll like it." And so we watched it, and I like again. I'm actually not sure if I saw that first or Pulp Fiction first. But again, it was one of those movies that kind of rewired my brain
Yeah.
to like understand what beautiful films look like
Yeah.
and like very intentional shots and intentional dialogue. Like it's it's such a well done movie that people don't really know about that much. Like I've not talked to very many people that know what it is. Like people like I've heard of it, but it's also like not a super obscure movie. Like it's directed by Wes Anderson, who is like a very well-known
Yeah.
director.
Yeah. I definitely feel like that movie for some reason like flew under a lot of people's radar. I don't know why.
Yeah, I agree. I don't remember when it was released.
2014.
All right.
There you
Well,
go. 2014.
I was gonna guess 2012, so it wasn't too far off.
No, no.
But I absolutely love it. It's I need to rewatch it because it's been so many years. But it's just it was the first movie that I watched that I was like, this is weird, but in a great way, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's
And I know
it's
you
so
watched it
unique.
recently, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, you told me you were going to be talking about it, and that was one of those movies. Like, I have a list of movies I really want to watch, and
Mm-hmm.
that happened to be on them. So I was like, I've got to watch it now. So I rented it through Amazon, and I watched it, and I loved it. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like it's not a movie that's for everyone, just because it's so stylized. The cinematography is really unique. The compositions are really unique, and Wes Anderson has like a really distinct style. And I like how a lot of the movie takes place in like the 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're seeing the majority of the movie, which takes place in the 30s, and the the aspect ratio is like in the old 4:3 like aspect ratio, like what um, TV shows were in for like the longest time. Were in
Yeah.
like that square shape. Movies used to be like that too till TV came out and movies changed. But I can get into that in another podcast. But um,
One of my other favorite movies is in that same aspect ratio. It's called The Lighthouse.
okay,
It's
I don't think I've heard of that
it's
one.
probably I've talked about it to you before.
Oh, really? Oh, I feel
It's
bad now.
like it's fine. It's probably my second favorite movie of all time.
Really? Okay,
But that's for another podcast.
cool. All right, I feel bad. But no, Grand
You're
Budapest
fine.
Hotel. The humor in it was so dry. Like I enjoy that kind of humor. Like I thought it was pretty funny, but
Yeah.
it definitely like you have to have like you have to just enjoy that type of comedy. And so much of the comedy was like cinematic, like or like it subverted your
Mhm.
expectations. Like a lot of the cinematography added to the comedy, I should say. Like just the way everything was framed and shot and the transit it was just really funny. It was a good
Yeah.
movie. It was like
If
a
you
feel good movie
yeah,
in a way.
if you're looking for an interesting movie that is different, just different in general, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure you would say the same.
Yeah, I definitely would. Yeah, if you're looking for
But
something different.
honestly,
Yeah.
all these movies we highly recommend. Like these are all
Yeah.
all very important movies to us, so obviously we recommend them to you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. My last movie is one that I would highly recommend to everybody, but this one's definitely not for everyone. And it's Lawrence of Arabia. It's a really old movie. I think it came out in like the early '60s, late '50s, early '60s. It won Best Picture of its year, which the Oscars is so corrupt doesn't really mean anything. But anyway, I don't know if it was back
Yeah,
then. Probably was, but whatever. But this
probably.
movie, I would say, is a complete cinematic masterpiece. I think it's one of the most beautiful movies ever shot. Like it, it's just gorgeous. It's about a true story. It's about the life of T.E. Lawrence, who was like a British officer who started an uprising in the Middle East during World War One. Um,
Hmm.
and it kind of follows his journey through the Middle East, um, uh, and how he kind of like tried to bring the Arab tribes together, uh, and basically try to make them like their own independent country, free of like Britain and European rule and things like that. But how he also like helped them defeat the Ottoman Turks who were controlling them, um, and kind of turn the tide of the war in on that front. But the
Yeah,
movie is just gorgeous. I mean, the shots are absolutely amazing. I don't think there was any kind of special effects used. Like the effects that you see, the trains that like blow up, the airplanes that fly through some of the
I
battles.
love that. I
I'm
love
almost
that.
positive like everything's real, and
That's
some of the
crazy.
shots are just so massive and grand in scale, and there's so many people, and it's and
the
it's just so beautiful. It's so
the
beautiful.
thing is like blowing up a train in a movie that would come out today is still a big deal. Like
Yeah.
that's what Christopher Nolan does. Like he doesn't use any special effects. Like all of his special effects are real. Like in the Batman movie, whichever one it was,
Yeah.
he literally blows up a hospital, like a real building.
Yeah.
It actually blows up. Um, and that's not normal. So for a movie back in the '60s to use such real special effects and like
Yeah.
real planes, like the thought behind that and the planning for something like that is insane.
Yeah.
And cameras are way different back then,
Yeah.
and
I mean, you were shooting on
way
film in the desert, like.
yeah, you're shooting on film in the desert, and they're way. I'm assuming I don't know what they actually look like, but I'm assuming they're way more heavy, way less maneuverable.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
it was a
they
pain.
don't have, yeah, they don't have like these machines that can hold them steady while they like pan like sideways up.
Yeah.
They're holding them like over their shoulder, like
Well, I mean, they had
capturing
like
that
tripods and
picture.
stuff to do it, but just the
Yes, yeah.
idea of shooting it on film, like you wouldn't know that you got the shot till like later when you like process the film and everything. So like you hope you got it, Like did
Yeah.
you get the
And
shot?
then
I hope so.
if you don't, then you blow up another train.
Yeah, because you got the budget for that, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, there's one scene in particular where Lawrence has to basically make like a really important decision, and he can't sleep at night. He stays up at night wandering the desert like around this camp, just
Hmm.
like deep in thought, trying to figure out what he's gonna do, and just the way the shots are framed, the beauty of it. Like there's a part where he walks off into the desert at night, and you could just see like his silhouette like walking off, and the wind is blowing the sand. You have to just watch it. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video. I don't know if you watched it or not, Grayson. It's fine if you didn't, but there's a
I still
YouTube
haven't watched
video.
it.
I'll link it in the description because it just goes over some of the most beautiful shots of this movie. The movie is like 3 hours long, and it's not really for everyone, but it is probably one of the most beautiful films. Um,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. So that's all I have to say about it.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I definitely need to watch that. It's now on my list of movies that I plan to watch soon.
It's amazing.
For my last one, a little bit different genre here. Is the original Conjuring movie, and I for a long time I've had a love for horror movies and scary movies. But The Conjuring is the best. It as far as a scary movie goes, horror is a giant genre that people actually don't really know about. It covers a lot of different subgenres. And one of those subgenres is like scary movies, quote unquote. Um, and The Conjuring falls in a scary movie. And the way it's done is not cheesy at all, which is so rare for a movie
Yeah.
like it. Um, and it's incredible too because it's a true story. Like it's about this couple, this Catholic couple that like they exorcise demons out of people, and they're very like they were very well known. I mean, like the husband is still alive, but they traveled the world because people wanted them to like save their family members and like
Hmm.
not get killed by these demons. If you believe in that thing, great. If you don't, great. That's not what this conversation is about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's it's so good. If you like scary movies of any of that kind, I highly recommend it. Like you've probably seen it. But if you haven't, you have to watch it. I know, Mike, you don't really like scary movies
No,
that
I don't really
much,
care
or
for
horror
them very
movies.
much.
So, and that's fine.
I
Like
can respect that they like have their place and they have like their like fans and stuff like that. They definitely like. I don't think that they're bad or anything. They just don't interest me like too much.
yeah, for sure. And I understand that, but my I don't know. The another interesting thing about it is that there's several different movies in the franchise, I guess you should call it. Um they're like Annabelle, if you've heard of Annabelle, that's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a Conjuring movie. The
Okay.
Conjuring 2, obviously. There's a Conjuring 3 coming out this year,
Oh, for real?
which I'm stoked about. So excited about it. And there's been a few other movies, but none of them compare to the original Conjuring. Um, and that has kind of well, really the first movie that broadened my horizon for like scary movies of this type was Insidious.
Okay.
Um, and it was super good. Honestly, that might be an honorable mention as well. But Insidious kind of like bridged that gap for me, and then I started like actually getting into more scary movies. But it's just hard to find good ones.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Um
Yeah. I
honestly I think that's it.
just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying. I feel like one of the reasons that so many people like think of some like horror movies as being like really cheesy is just because like I think I talked to you about this earlier, but a lot of like horror films are so easy to make. Not that they're like easy to make. It's easy to make a horror film. It's hard to make a good horror film. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to make any good film, but it's just because you don't really need a huge budget to make a horror film.
You
I
don't
mean, you
need a
can have a
huge
single
budget and
location.
you don't need a huge idea
Yeah, no, you don't.
because most of them revolve around the same idea.
And, like, there's some kind of
Like,
thing that's like trying to get someone, and you can like pick just a single location, like a log cabin in the woods, and there's a monster out there. Like, you've got a horror film. So you don't have to have a
yeah.
huge budget. So I feel like you get a lot of inexperienced people making horror films, just because I mean
It's
they're
true. I've
pretty
never thought
easy
about that.
films to make, you know.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, you think of like a sci-fi film, and there's a lot of really goofy sci-fi films out there. I feel like since Star Wars, there's less goofy sci-fi than there used to be, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely still exists. But that was just because sci-fi back then could be just like so low budget. I guess maybe we've
Yeah.
raised our standards for sci-fi now with special effects and things like
I
that.
would say I would say we have. Yeah.
But I mean, you kind of I kind of equate like horror now as what sci-fi was before Star Wars came out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yeah. If you watch any sci-fi movies before Star Wars, they're terrible. Like most of them are
a lot of them,
garbage.
there are some good ones. I mean, you've got 2001 Space Odyssey. I think it was.
Yeah, that's a
Is it
masterpiece.
2001 or is it
Yeah,
2000?
it's 2001 Space Odyssey.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know why I couldn't remember, but Stanley Kubrick, who is another like incredible director when it comes to cinematography. I've never seen
It's
one of his
actually
films, but
it's actually that movie 2001 Space Odyssey influenced a lot of Interstellar.
oh really? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Mhm.
Cool, cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Oh well, I think that's pretty much it for the movies. One honorable mention I
Yeah.
have left is actually a movie that I kind of forgot about, which I guess doesn't make it too influential, but it is one that when I saw it, uh, it did like really impact me, and that was 1917.
It was a great movie.
You have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
it's
love that
incredible.
movie. I absolutely love that movie. One
It's
thing I
probably
hate,
the best filmed movie of 2019.
yeah,
Or did it,
I
it came out in 2019, right? Or
it
did it
came
come
out
out
in
in 2020?
2019 for select theaters, but it didn't like fully release till 2020.
Okay.
It was actually the last movie I saw in theaters. I saw it in January 2020. So a year ago now. But man, that I one thing I hate about modern cinema is how fast a lot of cuts are. Um,
Yeah.
if you don't believe me that modern cinema, especially like action films, the cuts are super fast, just look up Taken 3, the fence jumping scene. I don't know if you've seen that or heard of it, but Liam Neeson jumps a fence and I think like 17 cuts, and the shot, like the whole like thing lasts maybe 5 seconds. It's just insane, but the whole movie is filmed
That's
to look like
ridiculous.
it. No, it's so funny. Like you have to see it. It's just hilarious to laugh at. Like you watch this clip. I mean, it's literally like 5 seconds, but it's such a headache. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's an extreme example. But as movies have gone on, cuts have gotten faster. As I guess that's just because of our attention span has gotten shorter. But this movie is made to look like one continuous take. If you haven't seen it already, like one continuous shot. It's not, but it
It's
definitely
it they claim to be the movie claims to be a single continuous shot.
it's not.
I don't believe it is.
It's not. It's not at all. They did a lot of like really, uh, they did a lot of in camera tricks, to kind of hide cuts, different things where like if something passes in front of the camera, you can like mask certain things out, and another one is like if look at something that's really really dark, you can end the shot and then start the shot on something that's really dark and then move into light. It looks like there's
Yeah.
no cut. They did a lot of
About
like camera tricks like that.
when it fades, like in the movie it fades to black and then it like comes back and like lightens up. That's obviously two takes. Like there's no way, like that's just ridiculous. I don't believe for a second that that movie was a single shot.
No, it wasn't. It definitely looks like it would be, and to somebody who like wasn't versed in movies, I'm sure they could easily get away with it. Like it's pretty convincing, but it's
I
not.
mean, like even to me, like I feel like I'm pretty versed in movies, but if I wasn't like trying to pay attention to it, I wouldn't have noticed it. I would just notice the single shot. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day it doesn't matter.
yeah,
What matters is that the filming in it was incredible.
yeah.
Just
There are some scenes that are just amazing, just beautiful too.
the airplane scene is ridiculous,
Oh man, dude,
and the
that was so
bombing scene
crazy.
is ridiculous.
The bombing scene.
Where, sorry, spoiler alert.
Oh, when they're
Um,
inside the German uh
no,
tunnels.
when he's running to the general, or
Oh yeah, yeah. He goes like over the top and runs across the line.
yeah,
Oh, that was
that
so
scene,
sick.
that's probably the best scene of
That had to have been a one take. I don't see
last
how you could
year.
do that again. I don't
Yeah,
see how you could do
yeah,
that again. That had to have been a one take. I
yeah.
love like after everything goes dark, right, and he wakes up or whatever, and he
Hmm.
goes through the ruined town at night with the flares going up.
That's a super cool shot. I need to watch that movie
Dude.
again. It's so good. It's so good.
Um, this is a bit off topic, but I was actually reading a first hand experience of this guy in a newspaper. He fought in World War I, and this was like right after he got back. This newspaper was written in the 20s, and he was recounting like his experience, and he literally talked about how he remembers like going through a town at night, and it was an enemy town, and they had lit it up with flares to see at night, just like
That's
the movie.
insane.
I just like, oh,
That's
it's so
insane.
good. It is so good. It is so good.
I love that. Um, Moving on to more honorable mentions. I won't make mine as long as we just made that one.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's my fault too. I just got super into it as well. Star Wars is obviously one of my honorable mentions. It used to be super important to me. As of late, it's not been super important to me, but like I would say The Empire Strikes Back is one of the best movies of all time for sure. And I watched every single Star Wars movie countless times when I was growing up. So there's no way that those movies didn't influence me in some way.
Yeah. No, that again, I love Star Wars. They're awesome. And yeah, they've been like an integral part of my life. They're my favorite films. So
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
for sure. Well, cool. Let's move on to the favorites of the week.
Yeah.
What you got?
I really didn't have one, but one thing I will mention that I definitely like is I really like your Instagram, like your like meme account, not like your like main, but like your secondary.
Yeah, it's not a meme account,
Okay,
but
I mean
it's just like
it's not. I
it's
don't know
like
how
it's
else to describe it.
what it is a photo dump account.
Okay,
Um,
I just like
yeah.
the aesthetic of that account.
Sorry.
It's just so cool. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
because it whenever you make a post, it's like I always look forward to your posts. Because okay, let me just explain it. These posts are like just a random collage of weird and interesting things that you've like seen. Is that like accurate?
Yeah, it's typically
Yeah.
like I typically will post like a photo dump of the past week or past month or something of just like interesting moments or things I've seen
Yeah.
that
I love it.
I catch on camera.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. I enjoy it. I'm glad that you enjoy it as well.
I
I
enjoy
hope
it. I
other
look
people
forward to
enjoy
those
it.
posts. They're just
I know
fun.
my friend Brendan really enjoys it. He talks about it the way you talk about it.
Awesome, awesome. You're getting
Um
a fan base. Look at this. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
know.
what is the Instagram name?
Um it's it's its underscore just underscore gray
Okay.
Grey.
Cool. I'll post a link to it in the
Um
description if anybody wants to check it out because it is so fun. It is just
yeah,
fun.
come on over.
Yeah, for real.
You're more than welcome. Um but yeah, super cool that you mentioned that.
I love it. I love it.
My favorite of the week is an album called Chrome. Sorry, God. It's called Chromatic by Lady Gaga.
Oh, for
And
real?
I've always been a fan of Lady Gaga until Art Pop. I was not a fan of Art Pop because it was too it was ahead of its time. And I re-listened to that album as well this week, and it was amazing. I love it.
That's
And
awesome.
I love her first two albums as well. I think The Fame is like probably the best pop record of like the early 2010s. Um, but Chromatic, I could be saying that wrong. I'm embarrassed if I am. Um, it came out this year around March, I think.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good. Like Lady Gaga like has like she used to be like meat dress and like
Yeah,
super
yeah.
gaudy everything.
And now she's at the
Um
inauguration.
yeah, for real. But she is a really talented musician and I love her new album. I don't know how I just now found out about it almost a year later, but I'm glad I did.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So yeah, go check that out. Um But other than that, I think that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode 2 of the On Mind podcast. We're
Yeah, man.
excited if you're listening, if you listen to the first one and you're coming back, then we really appreciate you.
Yeah. Like seriously,
Um
that's awesome. Thank you.
yeah, share it on your story, like tell your friends,
For
follow
real.
us. It'll be in the show notes for sure. And yeah,
Yeah, we're
until next
on
time.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, please.
Oh yeah,
Please do.
for sure. Go
Yeah.
on Apple. Apple's the only place that you can rate us.
Yeah.
Go leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. If you have any things that you want to see from us, like see us talk about or hear us talk about rather, DM us on Instagram or like email us. You can find our email and our Instagram as well, or probably we'll
Hey.
have it in the show notes.
Okay, okay. Sorry. You just like froze for a second, but it's fine now. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Cool.
Dear, I will say this now that we're at the very end. This is actually our second time filming this episode. We had some like serious issues earlier, and
Yeah.
so when I saw
My
him freeze,
laptop
I literally had like
was.
a small heart attack.
Yeah. My laptop was freaking out like a few days ago when we tried to film this.
But it's good. We've
But
gotten through
whatever.
it so
It's
far. We're fine.
yeah, it's good this time. But yeah, until next time.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
guys.
Bye.